My mother's retirement gala was supposed to be her crowning glory, a testament to her flawless public image. Instead, I stood on stage, a framed photo in one hand and stolen deeds in the other, and watched her reputation shatter into 1,000 unrecoverable pieces. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The dust in the attic tasted like old cedar and neglect. It was the specific, dry taste of things that had been pushed aside and deliberately forgotten, a taste I had grown uncomfortably familiar with over the last 32 years. I wasn't supposed to be up here. I was supposed to be downstairs, steaming the linens for the 60 round tables that would soon seat the creme de la creme of the city's business elite. Today was Patricia's day. It was always Patricia's day, but today was the grand finale, the retirement gala for my mother, a woman who had spent 40 years curating an image of corporate benevolence and maternal sainthood. I, Lauren, the daughter who chose a boring path, was currently on assignment. My instructions had been barked at me at 6:00 a.m. Find the photo albums from 1998. The videographer needs B-roll for the montage. Don't make a mess. My head was pounding. I had been fighting off a low-grade fever for 3 days, a physical manifestation of the burnout I was suffering at work. As a forensic accountant, I spent my days chasing hidden assets and unraveling financial lies for strangers. It was exhausting, exacting work that required me to stare at spreadsheets until my eyes burned. I was good at it, too good maybe, but it didn't pay enough to clear the mountain of student loan debt I was still chipping away at. I shifted a heavy box labeled "Taxes Do Not Shred." It was heavy, awkwardly taped, and shoved behind a row of old winter coats. When I pulled it, the cardboard gave way. It wasn't tax returns. It was a darker, heavier banker's box inside, marked with a single name in my grandmother's shaky cursive: Lauren Trust and Deed. My heart hammered a strange, erratic rhythm against my ribs. Grandma Rose had died 12 years ago. I remembered the funeral vividly, mostly because Patricia had spent the entire wake complaining about the cost of the catering. I had been told, repeatedly and with a performative sigh of regret from my mother, that Grandma died penniless. "She left nothing, Lauren," Patricia had said, smoothing my hair with a pitying look. "The nursing home took it all. You'll have to take out those loans for college yourself." It's a character-building exercise. My hands, already trembling from the fever, shook violently as I lifted the lid. Inside, there was a stack of manila envelopes. I opened the first one. It was a deed of trust. Beneficiary: Lauren Elizabeth, last name redacted. Asset: the properties located at 4400 Oak Street and the compounding interest accounts held at Vanguard. I blinked, trying to clear the fog of illness from my brain. I knew 4400 Oak Street. It was a triplex in the historic district. Patricia had sold it 10 years ago. She had told me the proceeds went to paying off Grandma's massive medical debts. I flipped to the next document, a bank statement from a custodial account. The date was 2 months after Grandma's death. Balance: $450,000. I sat back on my heels, the hard attic floorboards biting into my knees. The air suddenly felt too thin. $450,000, plus the property value, all designated for my education and housing. I looked at the withdrawal slips. The signatures were looped, confident, and aggressive. Patricia, last name redacted. The dates of the withdrawals aligned perfectly with my life's hardest moments. August 2012, $25,000 withdrawn. That was the month I begged my parents for help with tuition because my scholarship fell through, and Patricia told me, "We just don't have the liquidity, Lauren. You need to learn to stand on your own 2 feet." May 2015, $60,000 withdrawn. That was the month my brother Nathan got a brand new Audi and a down payment for his starter condo. I was eating instant ramen and working 2 waitressing jobs while studying for my CPA exams. I flipped through page after page. It was a massacre. A systematic siphoning of my future, categorized and signed for by the woman who was currently downstairs demanding I find a cute baby picture for her vanity reel. I felt a wave of nausea so potent I had to close my eyes. It wasn't just the money. It was the cruelty. It was the memory of me crying at the kitchen table, terrified of debt collectors, while Patricia drank wine and lectured me on fiscal responsibility, all while she was wearing diamonds bought with my inheritance. I looked at the final document. It was a letter from Grandma Rose, sealed but opened. For my dearest Lauren, this is for your F. Read 'em, don't let them clip your wings. The betrayal was worse than the diagnosis, worse than the fever, worse than the years of struggle. It was a physical blow. I sat there in the dust, the evidence of my stolen life spread out over my lap, and I didn't scream. I didn't cry. My forensic accountant brain clicked into gear. The sadness evaporated, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. I wasn't just a daughter anymore. I was an auditor, and I had just found the smoking gun. I spent the next hour in a state of dissociative efficiency. I didn't run downstairs screaming. I didn't confront her while she was getting her hair done. That would have been messy, and Patricia thrived on messy. She could spin hysterical daughter into a sympathy vote in seconds. No, I needed copies. I slipped the documents into my oversized tote bag, covering them with my hoodie. I crept down the back stairs, my movements silent. The house was already buzzing with caterers and event planners. The air smelled of expensive lilies and roasting beef. It made my stomach turn. I made it to the library, where the high-end scanner sat on my father's mahogany desk. My father, Alfred, the man who sat in the corner and read his paper while Patricia rewrote reality. Did he know? As the scanner hummed, digitizing the evidence of my mother's grand larceny, the door creaked open. I froze. Lauren. It was Alfred. He was wearing his tuxedo pants and an undershirt, looking bewildered as he held a tie. Have you seen the cufflinks? The gold ones? Your mother is asking for them. I looked at him, really looked at him. He looked tired, worn down by decades of Patricia's relentless ambition. But looking at his face, I saw the passive vacuity there. He signed tax returns. He lived in this house. There was no way he didn't know about the withdrawals. He had just chosen the path of least resistance. I haven't seen them, Dad, I said, my voice sounding strange to my own ears, hollow, metallic. He frowned, stepping into the room. Are you okay? You look pale. You're not going to be sick for the party, are you? Patricia will be disappointed if you make a scene by fainting or something. Disappointed. The word hung in the air like a bad smell. I'm fine, I lied, sliding the original documents back into my bag and sending the PDFs to my cloud storage, then to my work email, then to my lawyer's private server. Triple redundancy. Just finishing up some work. On a Saturday? He shook his head, checking his watch. You work too hard, Lauren. You should be more like Nathan. He knows how to balance things. He's already here, with Penelope. Of course he is, I said. Well, hurry up, Alfred muttered, turning back to the door. And put on some blush. You look like a ghost. He left without asking what I was scanning. He didn't care. As long as the boat wasn't rocked, Alfred was happy to drown in silence. I walked to the bathroom attached to the library and splashed cold water on my face. I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red-rimmed, my skin pale and clammy from the fever. I looked weak. But as I dried my face, I remembered a specific conversation from 3 years ago. I had needed surgery, an emergency appendectomy. My insurance had a high deductible. I had called Patricia from the hospital bed, groggy and scared, asking if they could loan me $2,000. Oh, honey, she had said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. We just renovated the patio. We're tight right now. Maybe you can set up a payment plan? It builds character to manage your own medical bills. I looked at my reflection. That patio cost $40,000, my money. A cold smile touched my lips. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just realized the cage door was unlocked. They thought I was the broken, scrambling, messy daughter. They thought I was the one who needed tough love. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. I wasn't just their daughter. I was a professional investigator who specialized in fraud, and I had brought receipts. By 5:00 p.m., the house had transformed. The sprawling suburban estate was now a venue. String quartets played softly in the foyer. Waiters circulated with trays of champagne and caviar blinis. I stood near the entrance of the ballroom, wearing a dress I had bought at a thrift store because I couldn't afford anything new this month. It was a simple navy sheath, elegant enough to blend in, plain enough to be invisible. "Lauren, there you are." The voice was booming and full of unearned confidence. I turned to see Nathan approaching, a glass of scotch already in his hand. He looked like a catalog model for unbearable privilege, perfect hair, tailored suit, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Hanging on his arm was Penelope, his wife. She was wearing a dress that probably cost more than my car, a shimmering silver thing that screamed, "Look at me." Penelope was 20C. An influencer, whose primary talent seemed to be spending money she didn't earn and making backhanded compliments. "Hey, Nathan," I said, keeping my hands clasped in front of me to hide the slight tremor. "Hi, Penelope." "Oh, sweetie," Penelope said, leaning in for an air kiss that missed my cheek by 6 inches. "You look comfortable. Is that vintage?" "Something like that," I said. "Nathan was just telling me about the promotion," Penelope beamed, squeezing Nathan's bicep. "Vice President of Sales, can you believe it?" "Dad really pulled some strings," Nathan laughed, feigning humility. "But hey, someone's got to carry on the legacy, right? What is it you do again?" "Bookkeeping." "Forensic accounting," I corrected him, my voice flat. Right, counting the beans, boring stuff," Nathan grinned, taking a sip of his scotch. "Mom said you're doing a speech tonight. Keep it short, okay? No one wants a sob story. Tonight is about success." "Don't worry," I said, my fingers brushing the leather strap of my bag where the document sat heavy and waiting. "It's going to be very memorable." Just then, the room seemed to pivot. The chatter died down, replaced by a ripple of applause. Patricia had arrived. She stood at the top of the grand staircase, pausing for effect. She looked magnificent, I had to give her that. She was 62 but looked 45, thanks to excellent surgeons and expensive serums. She wore a gold sequin gown that caught the light with every breath. She radiated power, control, and absolute vanity. She descended the stairs slowly, Alfred trailing 2 steps behind her like a dutiful servant. She worked the room like the shark she was, gripping hands, laughing at jokes, accepting praise. When she finally reached our circle, her eyes scanned me up and down, lingering on my thrifted dress with a microscopic frown. "Lauren," she said, her voice smooth as silk, "you made it, and you're upright." "Happy retirement, Mom," I said. She sighed, reaching out to pick a piece of lint off my shoulder. "I was worried you wouldn't show. You know how you get with these family events, always so dramatic." She turned her beaming smile to Nathan. "And look at my handsome boy. Now, this is a suit." "Thanks, Mom," Nathan preened. "Did you find the photos for the montage?" Patricia asked me, not looking at me, but scanning the room for more important guests. "I found a lot of interesting things in the attic," I said. She didn't catch the tone. She didn't care enough to listen to the tone. "Good. Just make sure the speech is uplifting, Lauren. I have the board of directors here. I don't want any of your melancholy. Just say thank you, say I was a great mother, and sit down. Can you manage that?" She looked at me then, her eyes hard and cold, the mask slipping for just a fraction of a second. It was the look she used to give me when I cried about being bullied, or when I asked why Nathan got a car and I got a bus pass. It was a look of total disdain. "I can manage," I said softly. "Good girl," she patted my cheek, a patronizing, dismissive tap. "Go find your seat. You're at table 19. It's near the kitchen, but it was the only place we could squeeze you in." Table 19, the overflow table, of course. I watched her walk away, laughing as she greeted the CEO of her company. Nathan and Penelope followed her like pilot fish. I stood alone in the middle of the ballroom. The fever was spiking again, making the lights blur, but the fire in my chest had nothing to do with the virus. I gripped my bag. Enjoy the champagne, Mother, I thought. It's the last thing you're going to enjoy for a very long time. The ballroom was suffocating. The air conditioning was blasting, yet the sheer density of wealth, perfume, and pretension made the air feel thick, like I was wading through warm syrup. I needed to breathe, I needed to think. And more importantly, I needed verification. I slipped out the side door near the catering kitchen, dodging a waiter balancing a tray of shrimp puffs. The cool night air hit my flushed skin like a blessing. My car, a 10-year-old sedan with a dent in the rear bumper that I couldn't afford to fix, was parked down the street, far away from the valet-parked Bentleys and Porsches lining the driveway. I practically ran to it, unlocking the door and sliding into the driver's seat. It was my sanctuary. It smelled like stale coffee and the vanilla air freshener I'd bought at a gas station, a stark contrast to the lilies and roasted meat inside the mansion. I pulled my laptop out of my bag and tethered it to my phone's hotspot. My fingers flew across the keyboard, logging into the secure portal I used for work. I wasn't just checking email, I was accessing the county recorder's database and the state probate records. I had the scanned documents, but I needed to see the digital footprints. Documents in an attic could be dismissed as drafts or mistakes, digital filings were forever. While the database loaded, I dialed a number I knew by heart. Lauren, the voice on the other end was sharp, alert. It's Saturday night. You're supposed to be at the coronation of Queen Patricia. Why are you calling me? Sarah was my mentor at the firm, a 60-year-old forensic accountant who had taken down Ponzi schemes that made national news. She was the one who taught me that numbers never lie, only people do. I need you to look at something, Sarah, I said, my voice shaking slightly. I just uploaded a packet to the secure server, folder name Bluebird. Bluebird, you're using the emergency code. I heard the rustle of movement, the click of a mouse. Give me 30 seconds. I waited in the dark car, watching the glow of the gala through the trees. I could see shadows moving in the windows, people laughing, drinking, celebrating a woman who had stolen my life. Holy Mother of God, Sarah whispered. The line was silent for a moment, save for her rapid typing. Lauren, is this the trust you told me about, the one you said didn't exist? She told me Grandma died bankrupt, I said, tears pricking my eyes again. She told me the nursing home took everything. Lauren, I'm looking at the ledger history right now. Sarah's voice turned hard, professional. This isn't just a trust violation. This is embezzlement, fraud, breach of fiduciary duty. The withdrawal dates? Wait, let me cross-reference these with the property records you just pinged. Check the date of May 12th, 2015, I said, my memory flashing back to the day Nathan posted a photo of his new condo keys on Instagram. Blessed, he had captioned it. Hard work pays off. May 12th, Sarah muttered. Here it is, a wire transfer of $60,000 from the Lauren Elizabeth Trust to Prestige Luxury Motors, and another for Bayside Real Estate Holdings. She bought his car, I whispered, and his condo down payment with my tuition money. And she disguised it as administrative fees and property maintenance in the trust ledger, Sarah noted, her voice rising in anger. It's clumsy, Lauren, arrogant. She didn't think anyone would ever audit this because she was the sole trustee and you were. Well, you were just the daughter. I was the daughter she thought was too stupid to check, I said. You have enough here to indict her, Lauren, Sarah said firmly. We can file an injunction Monday morning. We can freeze her assets. This retirement party, it's going to be her last hurrah before federal court. I'm not waiting until Monday, I said, looking at the stack of papers I had printed in the library. I had 3 sets, one for me, one for the lawyer, and one for the special guest I intended to become. Lauren, what are you going to do? Sarah asked, a note of warning in her tone. Don't do anything rash. These people are manipulative if you confront her without backup. I have backup, I said, touching the folder. I have the truth, and I have an audience. You're going to do it tonight. She wants a speech, I said, a cold resolve settling over me. She wants me to tell everyone who she really is, so I'm going to do exactly that. Be careful, Sarah said softly. A narcissist cornered is dangerous. I know, I replied, but so is a forensic accountant with nothing left to lose. I hung up. I spent the next 10 minutes organizing the papers. I highlighted the dates. I circled the amounts. I prepared the exhibits just like I would for a trial. Then I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked tired, yes, but the fear was gone. I grabbed the heavy frame I had brought, the prop for my speech, and the folder. I walked back toward the house, the gravel crunching loudly under my boots. I re-entered the party just as the servers were ringing the chimes for dinner. The atmosphere had shifted from mingling to structured seating. People were filing toward the round tables, finding their place cards. I made my way toward the front of the room, near the head table where Patricia held court. She was laughing, her head thrown back, one hand resting possessively on Nathan's shoulder. Alfred sat next to her, staring into his wine glass. I needed to test them. I needed to see the lie up close one last time before I shattered it. I approached the head table. Patricia spotted me instantly, her smile tightening by a fraction of a millimeter. "Lauren," she hissed, leaning over the floral centerpiece. "Where have you been? We're about to start the toasts. You look disheveled. Did you fix your hair?" "I was just checking on something, Mother," I said, my voice calm. I didn't step back. I stood right at the edge of the dais. I was thinking about Grandma Rose. The table went quiet. Alfred's head snapped up. Nathan rolled his eyes, taking a bread roll from the basket. "Oh God, here we go," Nathan muttered. "Don't bring up dead people at a party." "Lauren, it's a buzzkill." "Grandma Rose," Patricia repeated, her eyes narrowing. "What about her?" "I was just remembering how worried she was about my education," I said, locking eyes with Patricia. "How she always said she wanted to make sure I was taken care of. It's funny. I was looking at the old house on Oak Street the other day on Zillow. Did you know it sold for nearly $500,000 10 years ago?" Patricia's face didn't twitch. She was a master. She took a sip of her champagne, her gaze steady. "Yes, well, the market was volatile. And as I've told you 1,000 times, Lauren, the medical bills were astronomical. Rose had expensive taste in care. It all went to the doctors." "All of it?" I asked. $500,000, plus the liquid cash in her accounts. "You have no idea how much it costs to die in this country," Patricia snapped, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Do not question me on this. I carried the burden of her estate, so you didn't have to. You should be thanking me, not interrogating me." "I'm not interrogating," I said, stepping closer. "I'm just clarifying." "Clarifying what?" Nathan chimed in, his mouth full. "That you're broke and bitter? Look, Lauren, if you need cash, just ask Mom. Don't make up conspiracy theories about Grandma's imaginary fortune." "It wasn't imaginary, Nathan," I said, shifting my gaze to my brother. "It was very real. In fact, I think you drove here in a piece of it." Nathan frowned. "What?" "Enough," Patricia slammed her hand down on the table. It was a small movement, but the silverware rattled. "Go to your seat, Lauren, table 19. Do not come back up here until it is time for your speech. And if you say one word about money or Grandma in that microphone, I will make sure you are cut out of this will, too. Do you understand me?" "I understand perfectly," I said. And I did. I understood that she wasn't just a thief. She was a bully who believed she was untouchable. She truly believed that her reality was the only one that mattered. She thought she could erase facts with threats. "Good," she said, smoothing her napkin. "Now go. You're making Penelope uncomfortable." I looked at Penelope, who was studiously checking her phone, ignoring the family implosion happening 3 feet away. "I'll see you on stage," I said. As I walked away, I felt Patricia's eyes boring into my back. She was angry, yes, but she wasn't scared. Not yet. She thought I was just having another episode. She thought I was powerless. She had no idea that I had just confirmed everything. Her lie about the medical bills was the final verification. I had seen the medical invoices in the box, too. Grandma's insurance had covered 90%. The astronomical costs were a fabrication, just like her love for me. I sat down at table 19. It was located next to the swinging kitchen doors. Every time a waiter came out, I got a face full of steam and the smell of fish. The other guests at the table were Patricia's distant cousins and a few former secretaries she had fired years ago but felt obligated to invite. They ignored me, I ignored them. I placed the folder on my lap, hidden under the tablecloth. I checked my phone. Sarah had sent one last text. Document 4 attached, the auditor's note on the charity fund. It's worse than we thought. I opened the attachment. The first course was served, a lobster bisque that I couldn't bring myself to touch. My stomach was churning, a mix of the lingering flu and the adrenaline coursing through my veins. While the room clinked spoons against china, I zoomed in on the document Sarah had just sent. It was a PDF of the tax filings for the Patricia Foundation, the charity my mother had run for 5 years. It was supposed to help underprivileged girls go to college. A noble cause. It was the centerpiece of her public image. I looked at the donor list. Donor, the Lauren Elizabeth Trust. Amount, $10,000 annually. I stifled a gasp. She hadn't just stolen the money for herself and Nathan. She had laundered my inheritance through her own charity to get the tax write-offs for herself. She had donated my money in her name, taken the accolades, taken the tax break, and left me with the student loans. It was a level of financial sadism that took my breath away. And now, the MC's voice boomed over the speakers, interrupting my spiraling thoughts, we have a very special treat. Please welcome the woman of the hour son, the Vice President of Sales, Nathan. The room erupted in applause. Nathan jogged up the steps to the stage, beaming. He adjusted the microphone, flashing that winning smile that had gotten him through life without ever having to work for anything. Wow, Nathan began, chuckling. What a crowd. You know, growing up, I always knew my mom was a superhero. Not just because she ran a company, but because of how she took care of us. I watched from the back, my grip on the folder tightening. Gee, until my knuckles turned white. Mom, Nathan continued, looking adoringly at Patricia, who was dabbing her eyes with a napkin. You taught me the value of $1. You taught me that nothing in this life is free. You have to earn it. A few people murmured in agreement. I remember when I bought my first condo, Nathan said, launching into the anecdote I knew was coming. I was 24. I didn't have much, but Mom sat me down and said, Nathan, we'll help you with the furniture, but the down payment, that's on you. That's how you build pride. He paused for effect. And I worked double shifts. I saved every penny. And when I finally signed those papers, I knew I did it myself. That's the kind of integrity this woman instilled in me. Lies. I looked down at the bank statement in my lap. Date, May 10th, 2015. Transfer, $60,000. Memo, condo closing costs. Source, Lauren Trust. He didn't save a penny. He didn't work double shifts. I was the one working double shifts at the diner while he was saving. I paid for his condo. Me, the sister he called a loser. So raise your glasses, Nathan shouted, raising his champagne. To the most generous, ethical, and loving woman I know, to Mom. To Patricia, the room chorused. I didn't raise my glass. I stared at the table, my vision tunneling. The anger was no longer a fire. It was a cold, hard block of ice in my chest. Patricia stood up to hug Nathan. She whispered something in his ear, and they both laughed. Then, she took the microphone for a brief moment. Thank you, Nathan, she said, her voice trembling with practiced emotion. That meant the world to me. You are my greatest achievement. She paused, scanning the room until her eyes landed on the back corner near the kitchen. And now, I believe my daughter, Lauren, has prepared something. Lauren, are you back there? The spotlight swung around, blinding me. The room turned to look at table 19. Come on up, sweetie, Patricia called out, her tone dripping with condescension. Don't be shy. We all know public speaking isn't your forte, but we're all family here. I stood up. My legs felt heavy but steady. I picked up the framed photo. I picked up the folder. I began the long walk to the stage. The silence in the room was heavy. They expected the messy daughter, the one with the bad job and the cheap dress. They expected a stuttering, awkward speech about how hard it was to live in Patricia's shadow. As I walked past the tables of executives, I saw their pitying smiles. Poor girl, they were thinking, she just doesn't measure up. I reached the steps. Patricia was waiting for me, a tight, warning smile on her lips. Make it quick, she whispered as I passed her, and don't embarrass me. I walked to the podium. I placed the framed photo on the stand, facing the audience, but I didn't look at it yet. I placed the folder next to it. I adjusted the microphone. I looked out at the sea of faces, 200 people who believed the myth of Patricia. Then I looked at my mother. She was sipping her wine, confident, secure, untouchable. I took a breath. Hello, everyone, I said, my voice clear, amplified, and surprisingly strong. My brother just told you a story about integrity, about earning what you have, about the value of $1. I paused. I'm here to tell you a different story, a story about where those dollars actually came from. Patricia's smile faltered. She set her glass down. But first, I said, picking up the frame, I wanted to give Mom this gift. It's a photo of my college graduation. I held it up. It was a picture of me, alone, in my cap and gown, standing on the university lawn. No family around me, just me, smiling bravely through the disappointment. You weren't there, Mom, I said, turning to her. You told me you had a board meeting. You told me you couldn't get away. Patricia laughed nervously, standing up halfway. Lauren, this is hardly the time. Actually, it is exactly the time, I cut her off. Because that morning, the morning of my graduation, you weren't in a board meeting. According to the credit card statements I found in the attic this morning, I opened the folder and pulled out a sheet, holding it up to the light. You were at a spa in Sedona. The rejuvenation package. Cost $4,000. A ripple of shock went through the room. Patricia's face went white. She walked quickly toward the podium. That is enough. You are drunk. Nathan, get her off the stage. Nathan started to stand up, looking furious. I wouldn't come up here, Nathan, I said, my voice dropping an octave, becoming the voice of the forensic accountant. Not unless you want to explain to the IRS why your condo down payment was listed as a charitable donation on Mom's tax returns. Nathan froze. Patricia froze. Sit down, I commanded. I'm not finished. Patricia reached the podium. She didn't grab the microphone, she grabbed my wrist, her grip W. As iron-hard, her nails digging into my skin, hidden from the audience by the wooden lectern. She leaned in close, the smell of her expensive perfume, Chanel and cold ambition, filling my nose. She smiled for the crowd, a tight, grimacing rictus of a smile, but her eyes were black pits of rage. You always make everything about you, don't you? She whispered, the venom in her voice so concentrated it felt like it should burn. You selfish, jealous little brat. Everyone is laughing at you. Look at them. They think you're pathetic. I looked out at the audience. They weren't laughing. Not anymore. They were dead silent. A few hundred eyes were darting between the woman in the gold sequin dress and the daughter in the thrift store navy sheath. I looked back at her. For 32 years, that whisper would have crumbled me. It would have sent me retreating into myself, apologizing for existing, desperate for a scrap of her affection. But tonight, standing there with the fever burning out the last of my fear, I didn't feel small. I felt like a judge handing down a sentence. I didn't pull my wrist away. Instead, I leaned into the microphone, my voice calm, conversational, and deadly loud. You know, Mom, I said, my voice booming through the ballroom. You're right. I am making this about me. Specifically about the trust fund Grandma Rose left me, the one you raided to pay for this party. Patricia recoiled as if slapped. She tried to reach for the mic switch, but I blocked her with my shoulder. Nathan, I called out, looking directly at my brother, who was frozen halfway out of his chair. Do you remember when you got that Audi? The R8. You told everyone it was a bonus for hitting your sales targets. I opened the folder again. I pulled out a stapled packet of bank transfers. Exhibit A, I said, holding the paper up. May 12, 2015, wire transfer from the Lauren Elizabeth Trust. Amount, $62,000. Recipient, Prestige Luxury Motors. Memo, Nathan's car. A gasp rippled through the room. Someone dropped a fork. The sound pinged sharply against a china plate. That's a lie, Nathan shouted, his face flushing a deep, ugly red. She forged that. She's crazy. It's a bank-certified record, Nathan, I said calmly. It has the transaction ID. And look, here's the signature authorizing the release of funds. It's Mom's, but wait, there's more. I turned to the table where the board of directors for Patricia's company sat. The CEO, Mr. Henderson, was watching intently, his frown deepening. Mr. Henderson, I said, you've always praised my mother for her philanthropic work, the Patricia Foundation. Helping underprivileged girls get an education, it's a beautiful mission statement. Patricia made a sound, a strangled, desperate noise. Lauren, stop. We can talk about this. I'll give you the money. I'll write you a check right now. Just stop. It's too late for a check, Mother, I said, because I'm not interested in the money anymore. I'm interested in the truth. I pulled out the tax document Sarah had sent me, the smoking gun. Mr. Henderson, I continued, did you know that the Patricia Foundation has been receiving annual donations of $10,000 from a trust fund that was legally designated for my housing and education? And did you know that these donations were then written off on Patricia's personal tax returns as charitable giving? Mr. Henderson stood up slowly. He was a tall man, imposing, and he looked furious. Patricia, is this true? Did you wash family money through the company charity? It was an accounting error, Patricia shrieked, her composure finally shattering. She looked wild, her hair coming loose from its pins. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She's a glorified bookkeeper. She's jealous of my success. I'm a forensic accountant, I corrected her, my voice cutting through her hysteria. And I know exactly what I'm talking about. I know that skimming from a trust is a felony. I know that tax fraud is a federal crime. And I know that you have spent the last 12 years living a life of luxury on the backs of a dead woman and a daughter you despised. I looked at Alfred, my father, the man who had sat in the corner for 40 years. Dad, I said, softening my voice just a fraction. Did you know the patio you're so proud of was paid for with my tuition? Alfred looked at me. Then he looked at Patricia. He looked at the woman he had feared and obeyed for decades. He saw the sweat ruining her makeup, the desperation in her eyes, the sheer ugliness of her soul laid bare under the ballroom lights. Slowly, shakily, Alfred stood up. Patricia, he said, his voice quiet but audible in the stunned silence. Tell me you didn't steal from Rose. Tell me you didn't steal from our daughter. I did what I had to do, Patricia screamed, stomping her foot like a petulant child. We have a lifestyle to maintain, Alfred. Do you? Think your salary covered this house? This life? I did it for us. I did it so we wouldn't be average. You did it for you, Alfred said. He took his napkin off his lap and placed it on the table. I think I'm going to go home now. Alfred, Patricia yelled. Sit down, don't you dare walk away from me. But Alfred turned his back on her. He started walking toward the exit. That was the breaking point. The illusion didn't just crack, it pulverized. Mr. Henderson leaned over to his VP. Call legal, get them on the phone now. I want an audit of her entire tenure started tonight. And call security. Escort her off the premises. This party is over. No, Patricia grabbed the microphone stand, her knuckles white. You can't do this to me. I built this company. I am this company. Not anymore, I said. I picked up the framed photo of my graduation, the girl who had stood alone on that lawn, wondering why she wasn't good enough. I looked at it one last time. Then I looked at Patricia. Happy retirement, Mom, I said. I took the folder, stepped off the stage, and walked down the center aisle. Behind me, chaos erupted. The murmurs turned into shouts. I heard Mr. Henderson barking orders. I heard Nathan trying to explain to Penelope that it was all a misunderstanding, and I heard Penelope shouting, "You bought my ring with her money? Take it back. I don't want it." I walked past the tables of shocked guests. I didn't look down. I didn't apologize. I walked straight out the double doors, into the cool night air, and I didn't stop until I reached my car. I sat in the driver's seat, the silence of the vehicle wrapping around me like a blanket. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from relief. I pulled out my phone and texted Sarah. It's done, they know everything. Then, for the first time in 12 years, I cried. Not tears of sadness, but tears of exorcism. I cried for the girl who ate ramen while her brother drove an Audi. I cried for the girl who thought she was unlovable. And then, I wiped my face, put the car in gear, and drove away from the mansion, leaving the ruins of Patricia's kingdom in my rearview mirror. The fallout was not swift, but it was absolute. In the movies, the villain goes to jail the next day. In reality, it took months of depositions, hearings, and discovery phases. But I had Sarah, and I had the best estate lawyers in the state, lawyers who were very interested in a case involving high-profile corporate fraud. Patricia's accounting error defense fell apart within the first week. Once the auditors started digging into the company financials, they found more than just the charity fraud. Patricia had been using corporate expense accounts to fund her personal travel for years. The board meetings in Paris and Milan were shopping trips. The client dinners were parties for her friends. She was fired for cause, stripping her of her severance package and her stock options. The company sued her for restitution. Then came the state charges, embezzlement from a trust, tax evasion, fraud. I sat across from her during the deposition 3 months later. She looked smaller. The Botox had worn off, and without her team of stylists, she looked her age. She wore a gray suit that was clearly off the rack. She wouldn't look me in the eye. "State your name for the record," the lawyer said. "Patricia," she whispered. She ended up pleading no contest to avoid a public trial that would have humiliated her further. The judge, a stern woman who had clearly read every page of the file, was not lenient. Patricia was sentenced to 5 years in minimum security prison, followed by 10 years of probation. She was ordered to pay full restitution to the trust, plus damages. To pay it, she had to sell the mansion, the jewelry, the cars, and the art collection. Everything she had hoarded to prove she was, above average, was sold at auction to pay back the daughter she had robbed. As for the others, Nathan's life imploded with spectacular speed. Penelope filed for divorce 2 days after the party. It turned out she wasn't interested in a husband who was not only broke, but also a co-conspirator in fraud. The Audi was repossessed. The condo was foreclosed on because Nathan couldn't make the payments without Mommy's help. He moved into a small apartment on the other side of town and got a job as a junior sales rep at a generic paper supply company. Last I heard, he was still blaming me for ruining his potential. Alfred surprised me. He didn't just leave the party, he left the marriage. He moved into a small condo near the lake, a place he said he had always wanted but Patricia wouldn't allow because it wasn't prestigious enough. He spends his days fishing and reading. We have dinner once a week. We don't talk much about the past, but he apologizes in his own way. He pays for dinner. He asks about my work. He's trying, it's enough. And me. I got the money back, all of it PL. Us interest and punitive damages. I didn't buy a mansion. I didn't buy a sports car. I paid off my student loans in one click. I watched the balance hit $0, and I felt a weight lift off my chest that I hadn't realized was crushing me. Then I bought a house. A small 1920s bungalow with a big porch and an attic that I promised myself would never hold secrets, only holiday decorations. 6 months after the party, I stood in my new kitchen. The morning sun was streaming through the window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. I was making coffee. I walked into the living room. On the mantel, in a place of honor, sat the framed photo of me at my graduation. But next to it, I had placed a new photo. It was an old Polaroid I had found in the box that day in the attic, stuck between two bank statements. It was a picture of Grandma Rose holding me when I was a baby. She was laughing, looking down at me with pure, unadulterated delight. On the back, in her shaky script, she had written, "Lauren, my greatest investment." I picked up the photo and smiled. "You were right, Grandma," I whispered to the empty room. "You gave me wings. It just took me a while to learn how to use them." I put the photo down, grabbed my keys, and walked out the door. I had work to do. There were other files to audit, other truths to uncover. Patricia had tried to teach me that money was power. She was wrong. Truth is power, and business was booming.